Here,
Why is my stuff upside down?
Did you flip the thing around?
you got to flip it around, maybe, right?
Did you flip the iPad around? Yeah, there you go.
All right, we're good, boys.
Okay. Okay. So, all right.
You got an editing team, right? You can.
Yeah. Oh no, this will stay in it. No, okay. I got an editing team. Surprised you're not drinking a beer or anything right now.
Oh, dude, we're about to.
That'll be
We're going
later.
to watch the Cougs play. You know.
Oh, what time's the game at?
4 p.m. So
Okay.
7, right? Are you two?
Yeah, I'm 2 hours ahead.
Or
2 hours ahead. Yeah.
6 then. 6
Go Cougs.
Central
Yeah, it'll
time.
be at 6 for you. Yeah.
How are they going to be? Do you guys know how they're going to? The Pac-12, is it gone? Just
Woo,
Yeah.
Pac-2, baby.
Yeah, we're the Pac-2. Pac-2 is in the building.
Yeah.
They're my favorite.
Dang.
See? Hold on, where is it?
Pac-2.
We'll see what.
Is that an actual logo?
No, I made it.
Oh, you made. I was like, what? That looked good. That looked professional. You have to send it in. Maybe they'll take it.
Yeah. Maybe they will.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You guys ready for this?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here we
Let's
go.
do it.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Heights podcast. We got some cool guys on. They're decent guys. Abraham Lucas, and Liam Ryan. I met these guys at college. I wasn't in college. I was at Washington State University doing campus ministry with Father Paul Herrick. Shout out to Father Paul and St. Thomas More Catholic Student Center at WSU and everyone who's there right now. Go Cougs. I met these guys when 2 years ago, I think. Well, I met Abe when he was a freshman in college and I was a senior. And then I met Liam 2020-ish during COVID. But yeah, so I'm excited to have these guys on. Thank you so much for taking time to do this. So first off, just briefly share what you guys are up to right now.
You guys can still hear me, right? Like I'm still good?
Yeah.
Right, okay. I guess I'll start. So since college, in 2022, I was drafted to the Seattle Seahawks. I play football still. I'm going into my second year. And I'm not gonna say where I live or anything like that, but I have a nice place. Me and Liam live together. And this is like I said, it's my second year with the team, and that's kind of the main focus in terms of career right now. So that's where I'm at.
Cool.
Yeah, I would say it's my second year in kind of the league, kind of similar, but I had a different path. I went undrafted. Kind of crazy coincidence how God put us on the same team and from college. And then we were, together for a little while for the first part of the season last year. And then, and then did XFL. And then after XFL, came back from that. I lived in Dallas for like 5 months out of a hotel, shared a room and all of that. And that was fun. So now I'm back here and was invited to training camp, did well, and wasn't back on the team, but it kind of I had no regrets at the end of the day, so that was nice. So kind of took a weight off my shoulders, and so I'm living back here and trying to figure stuff out right now. So
yeah, cool guys. So football, how'd you guys get into football? Why not golf like me or tennis? I mean, sure, you guys are a little bit bigger than me, but so tell me just about the background, the journey, maybe briefly kind of where you're from, family, what led you to, I want to try to pursue football and then even football professionally.
I'm originally from Everett, Washington. I grew up in a family of 10 people. I have 7 siblings. And my parents have been still married for like 30 years or something like that. I don't know the exact number, but I think it's close to 30. And I was born and raised Catholic. Pretty, not a Jesus freak or anything like that, like the media would show you, but my mom and my dad definitely were on top of their craft, so to speak, with raising us within the faith. As far as football goes, I played it when I was a kid. I always loved it when I was a kid. And I did I played when I was, second grade, third grade, middle school. When I got to high school, I wasn't really planning on pursuing it all that much because I was more of a basketball fan at the time. So I figured me and my buddies from middle school we were going to play 1 year of high school football on the freshman team and just kind of goof off and have a good time. And then my sophomore year, I was kind of forced slash persuaded slash threatened to come back and keep playing, even though I didn't want to. It was just boring to me at the time. So I came, I played. It wasn't anything special. My junior year started to take it more seriously towards the end of my junior year, and really started to like it more. Senior year, I was full on in love with football again. And football became more of a way for me to get to college than anything else because I'm not an academic. And so football was a way for me to go to school and ended up getting some interest from some different teams. Wasn't super highly recruited, but WSU came to the door, came knocking, said, "Hey, we want to offer you a scholarship," and went and took a visit up there. Really, really liked it. Ended up winning a state championship my senior year for football. And then after that, after my senior year ended, it was like a week or so of summer vacation, and then we went straight up to college and got adjusted to that culture. And I had a pretty good college career for a guy who didn't really know anything about football going in, other than the fact that I really liked it, didn't know about techniques or work ethic or anything like that. Showed up, got to work, learned, grew as a player, grew as a person, did fairly well. Um, I knew going into my second year, my first year starting, that I could probably go to the league if I really, really took it seriously and got after it, and so I did. Um, and then or in 2022, like I said, ended up getting drafted. Um, Here I am.
Sweet. Thanks, Ed. What about you,
Yeah.
Liam?
So like I kind of knew football was going to be kind of my route. Um, but I was very similar to Abe, where like basketball was like I don't know, I just fell in love with the game of basketball at such a young age, and I was always a step ahead of people, and so like um, on the basketball court, growing up, you're playing in all these rec leagues and stuff, and like I mean, I was killing kids, and like I think by third grade, I was my mom and like a bunch of other coaches in our league were like, "Hey, let's start up like a AAU travel team." And so from third grade to eighth grade, I played AAU basketball. And I mean, we traveled all around the place, all around California, Arizona. We played in Nevada, a lot of games in Vegas. And we were just winning. We had a lot of like dudes on our team. And so like I really enjoyed it until probably my eighth grade year. Things started slowing down for me. I started gaining a little bit of weight. I think that's where like the football body started catching up, and everybody else is getting taller and leaner. And I was getting taller still, but wasn't getting as leaner. I was widening out a little bit as a kid, and so and yeah, I just kind of I had some coaches, and a lot of stuff went on like my eighth grade year. Kind of took the love away, but yeah. So then I grew up in Southern California. So basketball, football, I mean, all the sports down there are huge, and so yeah. So I ended up going to a different high school than where I was supposed to go, and I was supposed to go to a public high school called Chino Hills High School, and I wanted to take another route. And Chino Hills High School at the time had the Ball brothers. They're most of them are in the NBA right now, and they were strictly basketball guys, and it was becoming a basketball school and kind of a primarily one sport. Like you can only play one sport, and I wanted to be a dual athlete. I wanted to play basketball and football in high school. So I started looking around, and I grew up Catholic, but I also had some other choices. With my dad being Christian and taking me into these big old churches, and they have the live band on the stage, and you have your intermission, coffee break, and whatever that stuff is. But I mean, as long as you believe in Jesus, I think that's all that really matters. I don't care how you really worship. So, um, So yeah, I kind of had the best of both worlds, I guess, and I got to really pick and choose from what I wanted. And I think like after my eighth grade year, I was just like, I want to get like confirmed in a Catholic church. So I ended up doing that. Or it might have been, I wanted to get confirmed. I think you get confirmed in high school or, my freshman year or something like that. So I ended up doing that and went to a all private boys Catholic high school called Damien High School from St. Damien to Molokai. Learned a lot about him. He's a very interesting dude for sure. And there's actually another Damien High School in Hawaii. Um, and so like a lot of people would, like, oh, Damien High School, like if you're from California, you know where that's at. But like other people are like, isn't there another Damien High School and like from Hawaii? And I was like, oh yeah, like, but I never heard of them. But so yeah, and then I went throughout high school. Um, played basketball and football. Basketball, I was a lot more excelled in because I didn't get to play football and I didn't get to play tackle football until eighth grade because we had a weight requirement when I was younger. So every time I would have had to play tackle football, I would have been in sixth grade when I wanted to first start, and I would have been playing against eighth graders because of my weight. And so I was like, that's not fair. I'm going to get destroyed out there. Um, so yeah, I didn't end up playing until eighth grade. Freshman year, I ended up actually tearing my MCL freshman year. Like I had like four guys land on my knee, and I went the opposite direction, so it wasn't good. I ended up missing like 5 games, coming back, enjoying freshman year of football, and then ended up playing basketball, made it varsity as a sophomore. That was pretty big time because our basketball team was like really, really good at my high school. And then, yeah, junior year was my first, kind of start for football. I was kind of a late bloomer. A lot of the football guys, were a lot bigger and a lot stronger, a lot faster. And I think I was probably like 6'5", 250 at the time. And like everybody's like 260, jacked up. Like, I don't know if they were taking what they were on, but they definitely lived in the weight room. And so, like, I remember a bunch of people telling me like, you got to start taking football seriously. This is going to be kind of your path. I know you're probably going to stop growing around 6'5", 6'6", and that's like the average point guard in the NBA. And I was like, well, I can dribble, but but so I was just, I played center my whole life, so I was just at the end of the day, I knew something kind of clicked in me. I was like, all right, football is going to be my route. My uncle played football in college at San Jose State. So I was like, he played offensive line. So I was like, all right, this is going to be my position. I enjoyed hitting people, even in basketball. And so I was kind of the cleanup guy, setting screens, rebounding, doing all the dirty work, diving on the floor. Um, yeah. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start taking football more seriously. So, yeah, so my junior year really impacted me, did well. And I think that's when most of my offers started coming in after my junior season because I mean, every team we played, they had Division I guys on their team. So like scouts and all these guys are coming out and watching the games. And so I think by the end of my junior year, going into my senior year, I had like 11 or 12 offers to go places. And I was like pretty excited. My first offer was actually from Eastern Washington. And I was like, I have no clue where that's at. And so um, I either want to go to UCLA or USC or possibly UW because I enjoyed, Seattle area growing up. So yeah, and junior year got a couple more, and was very fortunate to take some visits and see where my future was at. But there was something about Pullman that kind of just reminded me about home, and yeah, I thought I had a pretty good career. Um, I wasn't a guy who was going to be the best, but I was going to be the hardest working guy on the team. I was going to make it known that I was present on the team, whether it was with me kind of running my mouth the first couple years, um, and kind of being, the guy who's going to push everybody. Um, And yeah, and then kind of my senior year, junior and senior year, I kind of toned up on that. And I think Abe can attest to that. Kind of toned up a little bit, kind of focused on myself, and I think that's when kind of God came back into my life. And yeah, and then I had some unfortunate things, senior year, hip surgery at the end of the season, played with the torn labrum in my hip the last year, 2021. And I played the whole season through it, but it was tough. It was a hard battle, and I had some other stuff that came up in the family, and that was a tough year for sure. So, but yeah, and then I've kind of just gotten healthy and kind of taken everything by stride now. So that's where
Yeah. So you got, I think you guys would say, yeah, you guys are best friends. I mean, that's what I would think. You guys are
I'm.
good friends, maybe you're friends or whatever. So in college, like, just tell me about just like, okay, you're both right now. You guys are both strong Catholic Christian guys. You're trying to live out your faith the best as you can. I think you both would say in college it was a time of, okay, I need to take this faith, for my own, and I need to do my best to live it, you know. And I think you guys as brothers, as friends, kind of helped one another out. I mean, just even with football, like Liam, you were left tackle, Abe, you were right tackle. Like, you played together, you guys lived together, the journey of faith together. Like, maybe share a little bit about your faith journey in college, and maybe even about your friendship and how that helped even with playing with football.
Um, so I mean, I guess like for me, I never or I haven't really had a period of time in my life to where I've like significantly wavered. Like I mean, the faith is kind of all I knew growing up, and it's all I came to really truly believe in myself later on. Like I mean, when you're a kid, and mom says, "Hey, we're going to church," like you go to church. It's not a question of like, oh my gosh, like I'm excited to go to church. Like no, I'm like 7 years old. Like I don't know what's going on. But like as I got older and continued to learn about it, I remember when I got confirmed, my mom said to me, like you don't have to get confirmed if you don't want to. And I was kind of like, well, what do you mean, like I don't have to? And she basically was like, the world doesn't need people just checking boxes, especially in the Catholic faith. And I was like, I mean, it was never a question for me. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get confirmed because I believe it and I want to. But it like that moment was like a part of my life to where I was like, yeah, like if I believe it and I say that I believe it and I'm doing these things that I'm supposed to be doing, well, I have to show that I believe it. And in college it was the same way. Now college is a bit, I guess the most adversity that comes with college, for me, it just comes with like being free, like the freedom that you have, because like when my parents dropped me off, like that was it. Like essentially like I was like I had left the nest, and then it was up on me to make my own decisions. And there's a lot of different distractions in college, that you get wrapped up into, which I mean is pretty standard for people who, get their first taste of freedom. They immediately want to go and have fun. And I wasn't like a party animal or anything like that, but I certainly did indulge a little bit. I mean, and I was like I was on the foot I'm on the football team, I mean I'm on scholarship. I really don't have anything to worry about except for passing class and going to practice and, working hard. So it became like, I mean, you really kind of are like, you're known on campus, you have status, and that can come with some distractions that if you let, take hold of you or take advantage of you, could pull you right away from the faith. Well, that was never really me. Now, granted, I'm not perfect, obviously, but for me, I was just like, I'm gonna do things my own way. You know what I mean? Like within the faith, I'm still gonna go to church, regardless. Like my first freshman roommate was a guy who was Catholic, and I picked him as my roommate because I didn't want to be with another guy who was just like, secular or anything like that. And we were supposed to move in together, but he ended up transferring. Um, but I mean, and so I mean, I'm coming in. I was kind of set in my way. Like, I'm the Catholic guy on the team. My way of life was a little bit off from other people's way of life. Um, and I remember because me and Liam really didn't hang out or anything for the first year and a half or a couple years or whatever. And I mean, I was the freshman. He was an older guy. It was just probably like, leave me alone. I don't really know. But it was, it wasn't like we had beef or anything. It was just, he was with his group of people that he knew, and I was with my freshman group that I knew. And then I want to say, like, after older guys who were older than both of us started leaving, we kind of started like, because we kind of were becoming the leaders on the offensive line, so we kind of made that connection, and just kind of started to connect more, learn about each other more. Started going to church together. I learned that he was Catholic, and wasn't going to church at the time, and I was just kind of like, I extended an olive branch, like, hey, like, I go to church. If you ever want to come with me, I go every Sunday. It's like, oh, really? Like, where do you go? Oh, I go at this time, at this whatever. Yeah, show up if you want to, that type of thing. And then, you know, see him once, maybe a couple weeks later, you see him again, and then it just kind of became more of like consistent. We both be there at the same time, both go together, and then, just kept growing through the faith with each other, holding each other accountable. We were roommates, what, our last 2 years or something? 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. Um, really came together tighter in COVID, just because, everything with the pandemic, and how WSU was handling the pandemic, and really how bad it was. And having and us kind of having to lead the team together, along with some other guys, of course, but and really falling back on the faith, you know what I mean, to continue to be a Christ-like leader in times of hardship, you know, um, kept us close, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah. So Liam, there was a time in college where you weren't going to church. Abe started saying, "Hey, join me whenever you want." And then when we started becoming friends, especially like your guys' senior year, like you guys were hanging out around the church a lot, like getting to know the guys. Like you guys were praying on your own time, like just in the middle of the day. Like, so what happened? What made you go from, church, maybe I'll go here and there or whatever, to even now it's like, no, church is my number one priority. And even just when I was getting to know you, it's like you were praying on your own, going to daily masses sometimes, and all the events. So yeah, what happened?
Yeah, so I think Abe touched on it a little bit. Um, when you go to college, like you're free, like you're off a leash. Whether your leash might have been, like a little 5 foot leash, which probably Abe would say that in high school he probably had a really tight leash and his mom was very strict. Where my mom, we had a lot more things to do when I was in high school. But she was still, demanding me to, go to church, and whenever mom says go to church, you go to church. Abe knows that. So, but yeah, once you get to college, you're a lot more free, and you kind of have a conscience to make your own decisions. And I think at that time, being a young adult, kind of prioritizing, all right, like my freshman year, I think in college, my freshman year, I wasn't like all the other freshmen. I didn't stay back. I didn't, get to live my freshman life out, I guess. Go to parties while the team traveled away, and that's what most of the freshmen in our class did. I got to travel with the team. I was there. I was kind of a backup just in case. Abe knows. Abe kind of went through the same thing. So you're like trying to play catch up and get into the college life and kind of dip your toes into it, and you're just like,
Hmm.
I just missed the whole year. Like, I got to come back and kind of get my partying in. What, like, I'm not experiencing anything that they're experiencing. And um so that was kind of like the reality of it, is just being more free. And I was going to church. I was going to a Presbyterian church right on that the corner. I think it was Pastor Matt was the pastor, and a lot of football guys parked there and stuff, and athletes parked there to walk to class and stuff like that. So I was going there, but like I don't know, just something wasn't like fulfilling me. Something wasn't like I was missing something. And so I would go back to mass every now and then, just by myself. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, is like as a young adult, going to mass by yourself is hard, and like I understand it because obviously the Catholic Church can be intimidating, but at the same time, like what I've known my whole life and going to, mass my whole life, like they kind of just fell off. And then I was just like, not scared to go back, but I was just like, I was hard making connections with, other people. And, when I was younger, I knew a lot of people at mass and stuff like that. So it was just hard going back to a place where I didn't really know anyone. Before Father Paul got there, I think there was two priests and I didn't really know them. And so I was just kind of hard connecting with them too as well. And then probably with my inconsistency of going to mass, it was hard to connect with them because I wasn't even there. So, so yeah, I remember Abe kind of, extended a hand and, um, I kind of took took the grasp of it, and he was like, it wasn't like a hey, I know you're Catholic, like get your ass to mass type of like conversation, but he was like very kind of welcoming about it, and he didn't go about it in like a pushy way. And so I went back once, like he said, and then maybe a week later, like I didn't go the next week, and then, but that's what I knew. Like my first like year and a half in college was like, I don't need to go to mass every Sunday. Like I'm. So then I ended up starting to go every week, and I was like feeling different. My perspective changed on football and school, and I was just starting to feel better. And I think that was just me receiving the Eucharist. And I think Abe, when I first got back, like starting like to go to mass like every weekend, Abe was like, "Yo, like when's the last time you been to confession?" And I was like, "Dude, it's been like 4 years," and it wasn't like 4 bad years of like, "Oh, I need to confess this and this and this." It was just like that confession throughout high school and you know throughout like my first 2 years in college. It was just like it wasn't like a necessity for me, and I wasn't like, I was like, yeah, like I didn't think it was a big deal, but like once I started going to confession and confessing and going to adoration and like starting to dig my time back in to the church and to God, like my life, it was like a 360. And like everything changed for me. My perspectives changed on football. My perspectives changed on life. My perspective, changed about college. My priorities gotten straightened up. I started creating a relationship with God. I started creating a relationship with other people who had very similar backgrounds and who had same like-minded goals as me. And I think that's where me and Abe connected so well. Like it wasn't about football at the end of the day. Like, granted, was it a dream to play in the NFL and do all these things and where, you know, everything's taken us? Yeah, it's been a dream. Like, but at the same time, that wasn't like our identity. And I think by like our senior year, our true identity really came out because COVID and everything, the scamdemic, we like to call it, started throwing all these things at us. And we're just like, we just had to sit there quietly, kind of like puppets, and take it on the chin. And I think, yeah, just our senior year was really, really wild, and we just kind of had to go through a lot of trials, a lot more trials than what the normal college athlete had to go through. And I mean, having what two teammates pass away in college, that isn't normal on any college campus. And so, yeah, just dealing with all these things kind of brought you closer to God. And yeah, our relationship, I think me and Abe's friendship goes day by day. One day, it's great. And one day, it's, I can't believe I live with this guy, but no, we have fun. We enjoy each other. We're always constantly pushing each other, which is what I think we both like because we want to get better every day, each and every day, whether it's I guess really kind of holding each other accountable, like Abe said. And yeah, so like that kind of changed my whole life. Gave me a whole 360 of perspective on things. And yeah, it was kind of meeting him was a blessing for sure, because I don't know what I would have been doing. I might have been back in California doing something if I didn't have a good relationship with God. And um, yeah, now I got a friend for life, and um,
Roommate for
his
life, right?
family.
Roommate for life.
Oh hell no!
Forever,
But
forever.
Yeah, no, no. Yeah. No, but okay. So I tell if you remember this story or not, because it's popping into my mind. Because when you were encountering God and you're like, I want God to be at the center of my life, like what you just said earlier was like early on in college playing football, you had like just maybe we could call it a temper, or you just got mad, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we have nice Liam. No, we didn't. I mean, we don't actually have nice Liam. Like you're still,
it
you're
was kind
still,
yeah,
but
it was kind of like a controlled
control.
rage or
Yeah,
controlled energy that like
yeah.
where like I was, I mean, I'm always gonna be an ass, like, or an asshole, like I get it from my grandpa. And so um I think it was trying to use it in a different way, um rather than going and kind of being a prick and then not feeling good about yourself at the end of the day. Like, dang, I was like an asshole today, like to a lot of people, even though it was between the lines. Like, it was never taken outside of football. That's just how I was. Like, I'm a guy who can turn on the switch and turn it back off once we step off the field. Um, and so, yeah, that was kind of once I put kind of God at the center point. It was like, why am I wasting my time on this? Like, why am I talking crap to somebody when I could just walk back to the huddle and then have even more energy to go whoop his ass the next play or something like that. And so it's just like, it was just kind of like, you kind of got perspective on things. Like I said, like, why am I doing certain things when it's taking me, maybe two steps backwards and not going anywhere, forward. And so it's just like, I kind of used it differently. And I remember Father Paul told us before like each game, like, because we would walk out for captains and do coin toss. And so, like, I remember standing there and he was like, you put on the armor of God, like, you put on your helmet, you put on your shoulder pads, and like, and he would just say, like, once I got standing there right before the games, you got nerves, you got all these things going. But like my senior year, I never had any nerves because Father Paul just said, say, Jesus, I trust in you, three times before you walk out to the coin toss. And I was like, all right. I did it once and I was just like, dude, I'm not like, I don't really feel anything. I'm just ready to play. I know I was confident, like whatever happens can happen. Like, but there wasn't any nervousness um, or kind of like anxiety before the games. And then like my whole playlist like changed. Like I wasn't really listening to like heavy metal and all this stuff, getting super amped up and like trying to go kill somebody's, like knock somebody's head off. It kind of changed and I started listening to like jazz and like EDM and just like all these like weird, like it was all over the place. Sometimes I listen to worship music before games and it was just like it was different.
Yeah.
And like, but when I walked between the lines, I was able to turn it on, and I wasn't wasting all this like energy pregame, like loading myself up, like, dude, I'm gonna go rip all these guys' faces off. Like it wasn't like
Yeah.
that anymore. And so like it was different. It was definitely a different experience for sure.
Yeah. That's, I mean, what I'm hearing, and at least what I was experiencing when I was doing campus ministry there is like, even with the other football guys, is like your identity began to like shift. It wasn't based off of like, and I was talking to Jack Wilson about this earlier. It's like your identity is not in your sport, like your core identity. It's like, no, I'm a beloved son of the Father. And then I can go out
Hmm.
and play freely. That's my identity. If I win, if I lose, that's my identity. It's not going to crush me. It's not going to control me in my life. And so I think that's a whole different perspective. And so something I want to, Abe, I want to kind of ask you, and then Liam, you can kind of bounce off Abe. So you guys are entering at the end of your senior year. It's like, okay, I want to get drafted. I want to play in the NFL. Um, Knowing that, okay, that world, even just in general, I know, Liam, you've been in and out of the Seahawks, the XFL. You're a professional athlete. With that comes a status. With that comes, wow, a lot of the world knows my name, whether that's fame, money, women, popularity. What has been, well, going into being a professional athlete? What's that been like? Where, some pros and cons, and then what have been challenges in keeping your faith in the midst of that type of culture and that type of world?
Um, I mean, it's obviously different for everybody. I want to say like one of the biggest things that I've noticed is that like in during the season, it can become hard to make time to pray throughout the day just because I mean, it's a very regimented, very scheduled day, and sometimes the days can go from 5 to 9, you know, rather than like a 9 to 5 type regular job. I mean, you're there doing your thing like all day. So it can be hard to find time to pray sometimes. I've ran into that. I will say that like as far as like the status and stuff goes, luckily for us, we play a position that's pretty obscure and not a lot of people really take notice, you know. I mean, no, we're not like quarterbacks or running backs or receivers or linebackers or corners or anything like that. And so our position goes relatively unnoticed. I kind of like that, just because I would prefer to be like more on like the lower key. Like I mean, people obviously know who you are, but if you saw me as opposed to somebody like Geno Smith, like most people are gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's Geno Smith, and that's okay. Like I'm just like, great, leave me alone. Um, you know, I I think that I mean, for me personally, I think that God has really protected me, like really protected me from a lot of stuff. Now I think God allows certain things to come to me, just to challenge me to make me better. Like if you pray for strength, you better be ready for difficult times, so to speak. Um, I mean, everybody struggles different. For some people, it's money. For some people, it would be having lots of women come after you. Um, and you'll find no shortage of both on this level. Um, I mean, the biggest thing I guess would be for me is just to try as much as you can, try not to put yourself in those situations. Like when I was a kid, when I was a young kid, my mom kind of drilled into me, the best thing you can give your wife is virgin sex on your wedding night, essentially, right? And that's the best gift that she can give you. I still believe that, and I still have that, So I said like, I'll be a virgin until I get married. I still am, and I don't have any problem with that. But the temptations and stuff is surely still there, and money, you know having a bunch of money draws like some of that other stuff in as well.
Yeah.
Um,
So Abe, can I
you know
ask?
what I mean?
Yeah, can I ask real quick? So
Sure.
you saying, I still believe being a virgin, them being a virgin, that would be a great gift. So like when you
Hmm.
just even, and Liam, I want to hear a story from you about at some point. I remembered in the locker room, you told me that like this was after you were having your conversion, like a guy came up in the locker room, like, dude, I'm going to do this or that with this girl. Like, what do you think,
Mm.
Liam? And you're just like, I don't agree with that. Or so, I want to,
Yeah,
uh,
I
but like, or
remember that.
maybe even explain it. But um, like when you tell people, hey, I'm a virgin, like, is there laughter? Is there like, oh, I respect that. Like, even, especially just like being an NFL player, like, I want to hear that from Abe, but Liam, I also want to hear the story about the locker room. So
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I don't really care how people view me because of it. I've gotten a lot of weird questions. But I honestly, funny thing. I honestly get more weird questions from other women when they find out that I am a virgin. I had somebody ask me if I was gay one time because I was a virgin, and I'm not. I mean, I was just like, no, like I, I mean, no, I'm like, no, I have a religious code. Like, this is just how I live my life. It has nothing to do with any of that. Some people are like, wow, I really respect that. And it's just like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, I think to a lot of people, I think it's more of like shocking, you know what I mean, that somebody would wait. Like I said, like, I mean, I'm not going to judge anybody, based on like past decisions or decisions that they're making. But, like you mentioned with like Liam's story, if somebody asked me like, hey, like I'm going to do blah, 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 like, what do you think? I'd be like, oh, I mean, no, like, that's not my thing, and so, I mean, some people are like, wow, dude, like that's a really big commitment. Like that's a lot of respect for being able to stay grounded in that, and some people just think it's weird and think it's stupid, and that's okay, I mean, it's obviously clearly it's not for everybody. Um, but I mean, just me, I'm gonna live my life according to, what God said or try to as best as I can, I'm not perfect, but
Yeah.
I'm still gonna follow that.
Yeah. Liam, I want to hear the story. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember like bits and pieces, but I think I was sitting at my locker or something. It was like a group of guys talking about, what they were gonna do that night, go out, probably go to a fraternity, go drink, do something, and then this one guy was gonna like meet up with some chick, and um, I can't remember the whole extent to it, but um, obviously I think everybody's mind can kind of take them to where they want to go on this part, but meet up at a party, go back home probably later, and I think he I think he asked me about, what would you do? Would you, go hook up with this person or not? And I was just like, no, not really. And he was like, why not? Like, it's right there. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly my point. It's right there. Like any, and if you're on a football team or you're a professional, everything's gonna be right at the like front of in front of your face, and it's whether it's your decision to take that or not. And yeah, I just remember telling the guy like, yeah, like no, I'm going to church or something like that, or something about like maybe no, that's a sin. I'm not gonna do that. And he's like, what do you mean it's a sin? And then we kind of dove in, and I'm like, yeah, I'm Catholic, this and that, XYZ. I'm not doing that. I don't participate in that. Keep that away from me. You can go on the other side of the locker room and talk about it, but I don't want that around me. Or so, it was like something along the lines of that. And they were kind of just like, whoa, like this guy, like obviously that I think from then on there, like, kind of your words have worth when you're a leader on the team. It's how you kind of use them, and there's good times, there's bad times. I was always, taught to keep your mouth closed and say something when it needs to be said. Um, but yeah, that was kind of something where it was like that's where my whole life had already started turning around. I think that was probably the end of my junior year, going into senior year, and I was just like, yeah, like I don't do that no more. Like I've already done a lot of things in the past, and do I regret it? No, because I wouldn't be, I guess, myself today without those experiences. And I think the hardest thing was me having to acknowledge those experiences and kind of accept those experiences, because, and I mean, Abe knows too, like, we're both so hard on ourselves. Like, we're trying to be perfectionists and try to, do everything right as possible as we like, as best as we can, and we're so hard when it doesn't kind of go our way, and it's like, no, like that's what happens. Like you accept it, you acknowledge it, you pray about it, and you either do something about it, or it's going to kind of be like either something that you resent, but you kind of just have to let go at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And acknowledge what you did and learn from those experiences, because it can either change you for the betterment or it can change you for the worse. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people try to go for the betterment part of it. So,
Yeah. That's
but
some, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I look up to you guys in the sense of you guys pro athletes, even in college, it's like everything's just there. Like, oh yeah, I could go sleep with this girl. They want to sleep with me. And it's so countercultural to say, no, actually, I want to. I mean, maybe you didn't put it this way, but it's like, no, I want to learn how to treat a woman and even myself rightly. I want to learn how to love. I mean, because that's what the college
yeah,
culture does. And I mean, I can't even imagine just even being a professional athlete, what's kind of being thrown at you, or even what teammates are doing. But it's like, what's the biggest idols that people have? It's like money, sex, pleasure, power, fame, you name it. And you guys are saying, at least in the midst of like hooking up or like waiting until marriage to have sex, like, yeah, people have said that to me, like, that's weird, like that's really weird. I'll never forget, this popped in my mind. There was a when I was a college student, one of my friends who I was kind of help discipling, he two sorority girls walked up to him, and they were talking about just like the hookup culture and chastity. He's like, I practice chastity. And they're, really? Like, that must suck. You can't sleep around. That sucks. He's just like, no, no, no. It just means I respect women. And they were just like completely silent. They had nothing to say. And it's like, one, and something that I've learned with the theology of the body is, one is using a person, which is to treat a person as a mere thing or mere instrument for my own wimp and my own satisfaction and gratification. Another is seeing another person as a person creating God's image and likeness, who I'm called to love. Like what the Catholic Church teaches with sex, it's like it's a communion of persons. It's a holy communion of persons that is a small glimmer into the mystery of who God is as a communion of persons, and He's pure spirit. And it's like what our culture's treating sex, date, all that stuff. It's like, no, it's just a union of parts. Like, it's really, you know, when I ask people in the fraternity, it's like, this is what my friend said from a fraternity. He said, he asked a group of people, how many people have you treated like a piece of meat? Like, that's how people understand sexuality, pornography. What does your meat do for my meat? And it's like we're degrading and dehumanizing who we are and what we're made for. Or I've heard a lot of college students say, I'm going to get these 4 years out of me and just do it all, and then I'll be a good husband and a good mother. It's like,
Doesn't work that
doesn't
way.
work that way. So, um, after college, being a professional athlete, for the both of you guys, is there you guys have any like stories of when maybe you stood up for your faith?
I mean, with me, my whole thing is like, I think, I think Saint John, I don't know how to say it, Saint John Chrysostom,
Chris,
I think that's how you say it. Something
Christendom
like that.
or
Yeah. Yeah, something
Christensen?
like that. Anyway, he I think one, I don't have his quote word for word, but he basically said that, if if we go, the purpose of evangelization is to, educate people about the faith, obviously. Um, and you can't force that on anybody. You just have to be good with words, essentially, was his message. Let it be done through the sweetness of your preaching, I think is what he actually said. Um, so with me, I'm just like, my whole thing is I'll talk to people, you know what I mean? If they have, and I've talked to a lot of guys on our team who are maybe like non-denominational Christians, about like the belief of Mary being holy, the belief of the mystery of transubstantiation in the Eucharist, the difference between, say, the Catholic Church as opposed to whatever Christian church it is that they go to. Yeah, and I'll have conversation. I'll open it up, and the important thing I think is like, I mean, I don't go into it saying like, yeah, this is the truth, you're a heretic type of thing, but it's like, no, like this is, I mean, our religion is the only religion that can go back literally to Jesus himself when he was on earth through apostolic succession. Like that is a known fact. And we'll have conversations about it. And it's not a question of like, hey, like I'm right and you're wrong, but it's like, hey, like this is why we believe what we believe, and um, and people will make some people make comments, about like, I mean, the unfortunate part of church history with like the sex abuse scandal and the cover-ups that happen and stuff like that. And it is an unfortunate time in the Catholic Church, that stuff was happening, and some people will try to throw you off by calling priests rapists and stuff like that. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately there were priests who were doing that sort of thing, but the religion itself is not an evil thing. Of course, I mean, the Catholic Church on earth is a human organization, and unfortunately, there are sometimes bad people who, yes, do very incredible evil things within even the most religious organizations in the world, and you absolutely have a right to be upset, and you should be upset at that kind of thing. Like that's not an okay thing, obviously. But when it comes to objectifications to the religion and the beliefs itself, yeah. I mean, we can have some conversations about that. I mean, what I found is even with people who don't really know anything about, Catholicism or really religion in general, we line up pretty much on the same page with most things, like Catholics are not super different people from people who say don't practice. They may live life in a different way, but most people have pretty good moral compass, you know. So when you kind of start to uncover that, people say, hey, maybe we're not so different after all. Maybe this religion isn't as bad as people think it is, provided it's being practiced the right way.
Mhm.
So just kind of that. I mean, I just like to open the door to conversation about it. Like, let's talk about it. Sure, I might learn something from you, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
that I may never have thought of before. And that in that way, I guess, is kind of how I would say I defend my faith, so to speak.
Okay.
It's almost like a debate I've seen with Abe. He'll go at it with some people, but it's so funny because like a lot of these like guys will say, "Hey, like why do you believe in this?" or "Why is Mary holy?" We've had like conversations about this, and like Abe starts like you just opened up a new book for Abe because like then he'll start talking about it, and he's like, "Hey, how about we talk about it?" And the guys are kind of like, "Oh, like I didn't know we were kind of getting into like a whole debate about it," and they start kind of like shying away, and they're just like kind of like I guess not mesmerized, but like, dang, this guy knows his stuff. And so I think that's like the good thing is Abe will back it up with what he believes in, and obviously the Catholic church, and he'll back it up with a lot of things. And he's more of a guy. He's not gonna be like, hey, let's talk about this. Go up to you and like force you into talking things like he's not like me handing, flyers out at St. Paul or at what's it called, the Newman Center
Right.
and St. Thomas More, being like, "Hey, we got a cornhole tournament. You better show up." "Oh, I got class." "I don't care. Take this flyer, read
And you
it.
were,
I don't care
yeah.
if you throw it away or not. Take the flyer."
And you would walk
So
with
he's
them.
not. He's
You
oh,
would
I would walk with
if
them.
they yeah be like, hey, how's it going? And if they're walking, ignoring you, you're walking with
I'm
them
walking with them. Yeah.
to class.
So exactly, and so yeah, no, that I think Abe goes about it in a really good way. It's like he's open to talking about it, and he's not afraid of that. And like, I think that's with becoming like having an identity with Christ and knowing who you are and being yourself at the end of the day, and not changing for anybody. But like I got kind of a story that I know Abe can kind of piggyback off of and help me out with. Was with Coach Rolo, and Nick Rolovich gets hired to WSU. Nobody really knows him. He coached at San Francisco City College. We had a bunch of guys actually from San Francisco City College, so there's kind of a connection there. Kind of ran a similar offense to air raid, run and shoot. He is having really good success out, Hawaii, which doesn't have a lot of money for football, and they were consistently winning 9+ games a year, making it to Mountain West championships. And so this guy comes in and, he starts immediately during COVID giving back to the community of Pullman. And you're like, okay, like this guy is kind of special. Like he's a player's coach. We've never had a player's coach. And so he's kind of taking it, things from us, asking us questions. All right, how can I help the community? He starts giving back, posting it on Twitter. Hey, I got like 20 free dinners for whoever wants to go pick it up during COVID, just to support, um, uh, local businesses and stuff, as everything's falling out, and everything was crazy during the pandemic. Um, and so like you kind of saw a first glimpse of who he was, and come to realization, like we get into kind of the beginning of the season, where me and Abe were leaders on the team, where we'd have meetings with him and stuff like that, and with some other guys. And he asked us, who was the chaplain, this and that. And like I think that's where we really were like, yeah, we had a guy named Brian Daly. I don't know if you remember Brian Daly, but he worked at another Christian organization on campus and stuff like that. And he was with us with Leach for I think 3 to 4 years, before Leach ended up going to Mississippi State. And so he was asking us questions about that, and I was like, you know what, like it's great. Like, we get to do Bible study, we get to learn, the most important thing was we had a group of guys who came together, all wanted to learn about Jesus, and all had kind of an identity of who our Father was, and who we were doing it for. And so it was great and all, but we ended up finding out that Rolovich was Catholic. And I think it kind of relates back to like what were his reasonings on kind of why he fell out, was because of all the priest stuff, and he didn't agree with that. I remember me and Abe had a meeting with him, and he just didn't agree with that. And I'm not going to go into any more depth about it, but so we were kind of asking him questions, um, and yeah, little did we know, like all that stuff was going to happen to him about the vaccine. And everyone's filing for religious exemption. And I mean, everyone who is Catholic pretty much wrote a religious exemption. um, and yeah, and we saw this guy like change from being a fallen out Catholic to going back, going to mass, sitting up in the top pews at St. Thomas More, or whether it was going to the farmers mass early in the morning. And what was it? It wasn't was it Colton, right? Colton, yeah. Yeah, and so going to, the farmer's mass early in the morning, and then pretty much like then you see his family start coming. And so like something clicked for him. And like I think that's kind of the biggest thing that kind of at least happened to us, is like we helped evangelize like a figure that was pretty big on our campus, as being a head coach and a college football coach, and just showing him that through our actions and through not only just our words, because I think that's you can only do so much, but actually I think the way I changed my whole perspective of how I started playing, and they're like, holy crap, like this is day and night. Like this is a different Liam, like that's on the field now. Like he's not getting in scuffles, he's not fighting, like he's doing, he's going to mass, he's doing all these things, but then he's not afraid to speak out about it in the locker room. He's not, afraid to be a Catholic. And so I think that was the biggest thing, and he saw it in the both of us. And I don't know, something clicked for him. And I remember he started meeting. We were like, yeah, we want Father Paul like as our chaplain, like to lead and all this stuff. And because Father Paul, had put, how Father Paul is, he'll push things on you.
Hmm.
And so we were like, yeah, like we think this guy would be great for you, honestly. Like he wants to talk to you. If you want to talk to him, then great. If you don't, then great still. Like, but he's reaching out. He found out that you're Catholic. He kind of wants to sit down with you. And like they finally ended up sitting down, and boom, I guess like it went really well. And then next thing you know, Father Paul's our chaplain, and he's still the chaplain, because I think it impacted, not only just us our senior year, and not only Nick Rolovich, but like it impacted the whole staff because Father Paul started doing, staff Bible studies and gatherings every week because Rolo made it apparent that like this is what we need to do as a staff because I think his life kind of changed from that. And so, and his perspective changed, and he kind of started to find an identity, and it wasn't just in coaching. And so I think that was probably the biggest thing that happened like our senior year. I know Abe can probably piggyback off of some of that stuff, but it was a pretty cool experience, honestly.
Yeah. You want to say anything, Abe, about any of that?
I mean, I just remember the thing I just remember the most is like when we talked to him kind of about like his reasons falling out. I don't remember the whole thing, but it was like it was. I mean, he had been. I don't really want to share too much of like his personal belief, but it was basically like he was upset about the sex abuse scandal in the Catholic Church and how the church covered it up or tried to cover it up. And I remember telling him like, dude, like you're 100% right, like to be upset, you know, like you're right. You can like you can be upset. You should be upset at that. Like that's not an okay thing. And I think that I don't. I mean, I think that might have been maybe the first time that he had heard somebody like be like, "No, you're right. Like you're correct in that." And I think that I don't know if I mean I can't speak for him, but they I think it kind of planted a seed of like, no, like it's you can disagree with things, you know what I mean? But the important thing is that I mean, at least for myself, and I think for Catholics all over the world, is that, if you have an issue, you work to resolve that issue as much as you can. And like, especially with, I mean, I get it being upset, at something you believe so much in and then having something like that happen. I understand it. And then, but, it was part of his journey to kind of move away and then later come back. And that is kind of, I mean, that's just kind of the story of faith. People move away all the time and then come back.
Hmm.
And that's an okay thing to do. And so just to witness that happening was pretty good, was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a, like what you said, there's a big difference between I reject the church teaching. I don't know why the church teaches what they teach, or, but I reject it versus, okay, I'm curious. I'm going to question it, and I'm going to do my due diligence to like look into research why, you
Hmm.
know, but,
Yeah.
but I love what you said of that was like his first time hearing you should be angry. That's a
Hmm.
good thing that you're angry.
Hmm.
That's a proper emotion to what has happened.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, okay, I want to kind of move into kind of the final question for you guys. Um, so, okay, in college, like people are probably reaching out to you. I mean, you have people following you. You become a professional athlete. Girls might be DMing you or whatever. But even friends, like you might be having friends start reaching out to you. This is it challenging? Maybe it's not challenging to you, but of like really kind of, okay, who are my true friends that value me for me, not based off of what I do or what I have, or even like looking for a girlfriend and wanting to get married. Like, okay, I want a girl who doesn't just want me just because I'm some athlete, but for me, if that was all taken away from me, like what you guys said, like your deepest identity is not your athletics, it's something, deeper. You're a unique,
Hmm.
beloved son of the Father. So has it been,
Yeah.
how do you navigate that world? Um, yeah, how's that been?
Personally, I guess I mean friendships was never really that big of a deal for me. I learned that lesson in high school. That like you know a lot of people who claim to be your friend are not. And I mean personally, like with me, I can remember I always called myself the fallback friend, and I realized that like in high school, like if somebody didn't have somebody to talk to or hang out with, then they might talk to me or whatever, you know. Um, and so I really say I only have like three really close friends. Liam's one of them. I have a guy I've known since kindergarten named Robbie. And then another guy who actually played football for Wazoo. His name was Matt. He was like a long snapper. And what really kind of attracted me to these guys is like not it's like they weren't really they're not surface individuals, you know. Like these guys are all like hardworking, very hardworking people, you know, and they're not like you don't need to have status, you know, for me to, you know, take interest, so to speak, in you as a friend, you know what I mean? And like I mean, my buddy Matt is like a super blue collar, just like hardworking guy who's, you know, not an academic, not like a superb athlete or anything, but you know, is making a life for himself. And you know, same thing with my buddy Robbie. You know, he just keeps on moving forward. And then I got a guy like Liam who's very personable, you know, with everything that he does and says. And you know, he's a hard worker, and all these guys are hard workers. And it's like I don't need more than that, you know. Um, I guess as far as uh, potential wife status, I guess I don't know. Um, I mean, really, that's something. I mean, you leave everything in the hands of God, but that's really something that you leave in the hands of God, I believe. I mean, I've pursued women, I've been pursued. Um, you know, at a certain point, like I think you hit a point in your life where you have adult expectations of people. You know, where you realize, you know, like we're not kids anymore. And granted, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. But you know, you look for somebody to kind of be on the same page as you, and I think the biggest thing for me is like that I look for is, you know, what's your relationship like with God? And then what's the purpose of this relationship if we were to have one? You know, because the number one priority should already be God. It should never, or it should always be God. It should never be me. You know, like I'm not your top priority. God is your top priority. The way that the way that this relationship works is if we're both trying to bring each other closer to God through this holy sacrament of marriage and then through things like having children. You know what I mean? It all works together for the glory of God. Like that is the purpose of the relationship. The purpose of this relationship is not, I don't like, you don't need to make me happy. Like that's going to fail every time because I'm a human with emotions and I'm not always happy. And I can't make you 100% happy. No, but it's like how do we make each other better, right? And how do we bring each other closer to heaven through this holy sacrament of marriage, you know, and through this relationship. And so that's kind of like, I mean, for me, if you could find somebody who's on the same page as you for that, in that sort of regard, and who
Yeah.
loves the faith, um, you know, then you're on the right track, you know, and then, you know, you do your best to make it work, you know, and if it doesn't work, um, you know, you go your separate ways, you don't get married, you just keep the process going, you know, as
Yeah.
much as you can.
Yeah. What about you,
Yeah,
Liam?
I think for me, um, I'm a pretty stubborn person, um, and so I'm really, I'm like Abe said, like really personable guy, but it takes a while for me to like. I wouldn't say I have trust issues, but it takes a while for me to actually like. I'll sit back and I'll figure out if you're real with me or if you're just trying to put on a persona. And so I'm really good and like I mean, people will be like, I think people have told me this, they're like, dude, you stare a lot. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a people's watcher. Like I like sitting back, maybe go to a bar, maybe go to an event, and I'll just watch people because I enjoy looking at interactions. I enjoy looking at people, um, you know, kind of have conversations, and I'll look at facial expressions, and I'll just like I enjoy it. And so it's like when I'm staring at people, it's not. And I mean, I have kind of an RBF, so when I'm staring at somebody, it may look like, dude, this guy like wants to pick a fight with me or something, or what's his deal. But like it's not intentional to where I'm just people watching. And so like I look at emotions, I look at, kind of I a deeper dive into people. And so like when people are telling me, yeah, like we're friends, this and that, like you may say that, but like what Abe said is like I have friends, and then I have brothers and sisters who are like close and who I can talk to about anything with. And then um kind of, I keep my circle really small. I have, you know how many friends from high school. I think three friends from high school, and actually two of them are my best friends from high school, and they're gonna get married together. Kind of did like a little matchmaking thing in high school. Um, and they're both Catholic, but they see me as a Catholic and how I've changed in my perspectives, and they're kind of like, I guess what Abe would always say is little C Catholics versus big C Catholics, and so I mean, they go to church every now and then, and they're like, dude, we went to church, and it made us feel so good, and like all these things, and I'm just like, yeah, do it every weekend now, and it's kind of like I kind of like try to push them to be better in their faith and stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, we're fighting and so, and I'm just like, why don't you guys like pray about it or go to church or do something? Like, yeah, like if you're not pushing yourself in your faith, then you guys are just going to be pretty stagnant, honestly. And that's I've kind of seen growth from them. And then I have a buddy who I grew up with since he was 4, I was 5, and we went from all the way from kindergarten to college. Actually, we went to college together, and Abe knows Sam, and Sam's Catholic, but he's a mechanical engineer or chemical engineer. He does hydrogen and all this stuff, and he's a very scientific guy, and I think he's kind of fallen out of that. And me and Abe have had conversations with him and stuff like that. But I think as far as friendships go, I try to keep my cards close to my chest. I know who's there for me really, and I know who I can talk to, and then I know um, who's there because whether it's I played ball in college and I played ball as a professional, and um, you kind of start to weed those people out, and I'm a guy who cuts out people pretty quickly, and I think I've worked on that. I think I used to cut people out pretty quick, and now it's kind of like, all right, like kind of get on the side of, all right, why are they doing this? Maybe have hard conversations, because I know a lot of people who don't like to have hard conversations, but I'm willing to do that now. I used to be one of those people who would kind of neglect all those hard conversations, but and then yeah, so I'm pretty close cards with with people who I can trust, and who are kind of in my circle. And then as far as relationships go, like I've had a fair share of relationships in college, and but that was kind of before I started going back to church and kind of focusing on myself and focusing on my relationship with God. And I think those relationships were kind of premature. I think we were all very young at that time, and
Mhm.
um, didn't really know what we wanted. I mean, they probably knew what they wanted. I didn't know what I wanted.
Mhm.
So,
So
and so I think relationships wise, like I just didn't, I think it was very immature at the time. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's can be a struggle sometimes trying to find like what you want. And
yeah,
what Abe, what did you say? It's not what you want in a person, it's what you want in a
That's what you want in a
relationship.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah,
I
and I
think that
love.
really
Yeah, you
stuck
go
with
ahead.
me for sure.
Yeah, and I also loved what
So
Abe said of, like the whole point of dating, relationship, marriage. It's not that you make me happy, but it's, is this person, can they help me become better and help me get to where we're both going, heaven? You know.
yeah,
Yeah. With that, we probably got to end it at this time. So thank you, Abe and Liam, for coming on the Heights
yeah,
You.
podcast.
Thanks for
Thanks
having
everyone
us.
for, yeah. Let's
run
go.
it back. We're
Yeah.
running it back.
Hopefully we'll do it again soon.
Yeah,
But
Absolutely.
if anyone enjoyed it, feel free to share it with any of your family or friends.
yeah.
God
Bring
bless.
on somebody else next time. I want to see another face.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We're
All
gonna
right,
have
guys.
we need one more person next time. So,
Yeah, that'd be good to have three.
and it's
Yeah.
it's your job to find
All
that
right,
person. Maybe
I'll do it. All right,
maybe
guys.
Father Paul.
Yeah. Oh, we could have Father Paul. That could be good.